Stories and Documentary Network.
Hidden beneath the dense canopy of Cambodia's jungle, Angkor lies in quiet splendor, a city frozen in time, yet whispering secrets of a lost civilization. Once the heart of the Khmer Empire, this sprawling metropolis was home to over 1 million people, a pre-industrial marvel whose grandeur rivaled any capital of its era. But what made Angkor truly extraordinary was not merely its towering temples or intricate carvings. It was the lifeblood that flowed beneath its streets, across its plains, and into its palaces. Water. Angkor was a hydraulic city, a testament to human ingenuity, where rivers, canals, reservoirs, and moats formed an intricate network sustaining agriculture, urban life, and ritual practices. These waterways were not only practical, they symbolized the cosmos, mirroring mythic oceans and sacred mountains. Yet the very system that elevated Angkor to greatness may have played a role in its mysterious decline. For centuries, scholars puzzled over how such a powerful city could falter. Was it drought, floods, human mismanagement, or some hidden environmental force? Today, as we explore the enigmatic waters of Angkor, we uncover the secrets of its hydraulic mastery and the shadow of collapse that once swept through this lost civilization. The story of Angkor begins with vision, power, and water, but ends with a question that still haunts historians. The tale of Angkor begins in the early 9th century, when Jayavarman II, a visionary leader, proclaimed himself Chakravartin, the universal monarch, uniting the fractious Khmer principalities under a single banner. This declaration marked the birth of the Khmer Empire, a civilization that would dominate Southeast Asia for centuries. The empire's heart was Angkor, a city meticulously planned to serve not only as a political and religious center, but as a hub of social and economic life. Angkor's rise coincided with an age of cultural and technological exchange. Indian merchants and priests brought with them Hindu and Buddhist philosophies, architectural techniques, and the concept of sacred kingship. Temples such as Angkor Wat and Bayon became not only religious centers but symbols of imperial power. The architecture was monumental, adorned with bas-reliefs depicting gods, celestial dancers, and scenes of conquest. Every stone seemed to proclaim the empire's might and divine favor. Yet Angkor was more than temples and palaces. It was a living, breathing city where daily life revolved around water. The Khmer understood that survival in a tropical monsoon climate demanded ingenuity. The fertile plains around Angkor could sustain vast populations only if water was managed with precision. This awareness led to the construction of barays, massive reservoirs capable of storing millions of cubic meters of water, and a vast network of canals and moats to channel the lifeblood of the empire across the city and surrounding countryside. During its peak, Angkor's population may have exceeded 1 million, making it one of the largest cities of the pre-industrial world. Farmers tended extensive rice fields, supported by canals that delivered water with near-perfect timing. Markets thrived, temples prospered, and the Khmer court maintained an intricate bureaucracy that coordinated labor, tribute, and religious ceremonies. Angkor was a city of abundance, innovation, and divine symbolism, a jewel of Southeast Asia. However, this grandeur came with fragility. The very water systems that enabled prosperity were complex and delicate. Maintaining the barays, canals, and embankments required constant oversight. Monsoons that were too strong or too weak could spell disaster. And as centuries passed, environmental pressures, climatic fluctuations, and the challenges of governance began to test the resilience of Angkor's hydraulic network. The city's magnificence, its engineering genius, and the cosmological symbolism embedded in its water systems made Angkor unparalleled. Yet the same forces that allowed the Khmer Empire to flourish may have sown the seeds of its decline. How could a city, so meticulously designed and ingeniously engineered, fall into quiet abandonment, its temples reclaimed by the jungle? The mystery of Angkor's rise and eventual fall begins with understanding its genius, the mastery of water. Beneath the grand temples and bustling streets of Angkor lay a secret infrastructure that defined the city's greatness. A sprawling, sophisticated hydraulic system that continues to astonish modern engineers and historians alike. The Khmer were masters of water, transforming the seasonal rhythms of the Mekong and Tonle Sap rivers into a lifeline that sustained one of the largest cities in pre-industrial history. At the heart of this system were the barays, enormous reservoirs carved into the landscape. The West Baray, stretching nearly 8 kilometers in length and over 2 kilometers in width, could hold more than 50 million cubic meters of water. These massive bodies of water were not mere storage tanks. They were engineered to regulate water flow, support irrigation, and symbolize the cosmic oceans surrounding Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the universe in Hindu cosmology. As rainwater filled these reservoirs during the monsoon season, they became mirrors of the heavens, reflecting the grandeur of the temples they nourished. Connecting these reservoirs was a labyrinthine network of canals and moats, carefully graded to direct water with precision. Some canals carried life-giving irrigation to distant rice fields, while others acted as flood control, redirecting excess water away from urban centers. The Khmer even constructed spillways, such as the Bampen Reach, designed to divert surging monsoon waters into the Siem Reap and Pork rivers. In essence, Angkor functioned as a city that could breathe with the seasons, absorbing the abundance of the wet season and preserving it for the harsh, dry months. The scale and sophistication of this engineering reveal a civilization deeply attuned to its environment. Unlike simpler irrigation systems found elsewhere, Angkor's network was designed for resilience and redundancy. Reservoirs were interconnected. Canals could redistribute water if one section failed. The Khmer also incorporated sedimentation basins to filter debris, preventing the silting of rice fields, a challenge that modern engineers would recognize as vital for sustainable agriculture. What makes Angkor's hydraulic system even more remarkable is its dual role as both infrastructure and symbol. The moats surrounding temples were simultaneously defensive features and sacred boundaries, representing cosmic oceans. Water was a medium of life, a vehicle for ceremony, and a statement of imperial authority. The Khmer rulers demonstrated not only technical mastery, but also an understanding of the psychological and spiritual power of water. Yet this genius came with vulnerability. The system demanded continuous maintenance and oversight. Canals could overflow, embankments could weaken, and reservoirs could become clogged with silt. The very intricacy that allowed Angkor to flourish also made it susceptible to failure. A single prolonged drought, a particularly violent monsoon, or a lapse in management could ripple through the network, affecting food supply, urban life, and the stability of the empire itself. Despite these risks, Angkor's hydraulic network remained a marvel for centuries. Archaeologists and engineers today still marvel at the precision of the Khmer's earthworks. The layout of the barays, the alignment of canals, and the subtle grading of embankments suggest a civilization that understood hydraulics not only as science, but as an art form, harmonizing with the land rather than imposing upon it. Yet for all its ingenuity, the question lingers: could even this extraordinary system withstand the forces of nature and the passage of time? Could human ingenuity alone protect a city from climate, drought, and environmental unpredictability? The answers lie in the interplay between Angkor's water and the life it sustained. An interplay that would one day be tested to its limits. Water was the lifeblood of Angkor, not only as a resource, but as the very foundation upon which the city's planning and agricultural success depended. Unlike most ancient cities, whose growth often followed the whims of topography, Angkor was deliberately designed around its hydraulic infrastructure. Streets, temples, markets, and rice fields all existed in harmony with a water network that enabled both urban sophistication and agricultural abundance. The barays and canals fed a vast system of rice paddies that stretched across the plains. The Khmer mastered wet rice cultivation, timing the flooding and draining of fields to coincide with seasonal rainfall. By controlling the flow of water with canals and sluices, farmers could ensure fertile soil, regulate harvest cycles, and protect crops from both drought and destructive flooding. Rice was not merely sustenance. It was the economic backbone of the empire, feeding urban populations, supporting trade, and financing monumental construction projects. Urban planning was equally intertwined with water. The canals acted as transportation arteries, allowing goods, people, and even construction materials to move efficiently across the sprawling city. Moats surrounding temples, palaces, and royal compounds delineated sacred spaces while serving practical functions in drainage and flood prevention. The Khmer created an urban grid that was both functional and symbolic, reflecting cosmic order and imperial authority. The integration of water into daily life also shaped society. Villages clustered around canals, ensuring access to irrigation, fish, and water for domestic needs. Markets and temples thrived along waterways, creating vibrant centers of commerce, religion, and social interaction. Even religious ceremonies relied on water, with temple moats representing celestial oceans, reinforcing the king's divine mandate and the interconnectedness of life, society, and nature. Yet, the very dependence on water carried risks. Maintaining such a vast, interconnected system required constant labor, coordination, and administrative oversight. As the empire expanded, ensuring equitable distribution and preventing infrastructure failure became increasingly complex. The barays and canals could not function in isolation. They required meticulous upkeep and adaptive management to respond to changing environmental conditions. Angkor's ability to sustain such a large population was unprecedented. By manipulating water on an epic scale, the Khmer transformed a tropical landscape prone to flooding and drought into one of the most productive agricultural regions of the ancient world. The city became a living organism, with water as its circulatory system, bringing life to temples, markets, and rice fields alike. But the reliance on this intricate system was a double-edged sword. Any disruption, be it from drought, monsoon variability, or human error, could have cascading effects on food security, urban stability, and the empire's political power. The very technology that enabled prosperity also created vulnerability. Angkor's genius lay in its mastery of water, but its fate would ultimately hinge on whether this mastery could endure against the forces of nature. For centuries, Angkor's vast hydraulic network seemed invincible, a testament to human ingenuity and foresight. Yet even the most sophisticated systems are vulnerable to the unpredictability of nature. The Khmer Empire thrived in a monsoon-driven climate, relying on the rhythm of wet and dry seasons to sustain its population and agricultural output. But climate is never static, and over time, the balance that Angkor depended upon began to falter. Evidence from paleoclimatic studies indicates that the 14th and 15th centuries were marked by extreme climate variability. Periods of severe drought struck the region, lasting years at a time. Water levels in the barays dropped, canals dried, and rice fields wilted. Without sufficient rainfall to replenish the reservoirs, the carefully timed cycles of irrigation and cultivation were disrupted. Communities that had once thrived alongside the canals found themselves facing crop failure and food shortages. Conversely, the monsoon season occasionally unleashed catastrophic floods, overwhelming the hydraulic network. Canals overflowed, embankments eroded, and sediment clogged the very channels designed to sustain life. The West Baray and other reservoirs, meant to store water, sometimes became sources of destruction when their capacity was exceeded. Floodwaters damaged fields, temples, and infrastructure, leaving the city vulnerable to further social and economic strain. The Khmer faced another hidden challenge: the cumulative impact of urban and agricultural expansion. As the population grew, more land was brought under cultivation, more water diverted, and the system became increasingly complex. Maintenance, once manageable, now required the coordination of thousands of workers and administrators. Any lapse in oversight could disrupt the delicate equilibrium. The interplay between environmental pressures and human activity created a precarious situation. Angkor's hydraulic mastery, so admired by contemporaries and modern scholars alike, was being tested as never before. Droughts weakened the system, floods stressed it, and the very complexity that had enabled growth now amplified the risks. Yet these challenges alone cannot fully explain Angkor's decline. They were catalysts, exposing vulnerabilities that had long been present. Vulnerabilities intertwined with the city's dependence on water for survival, governance, and religion. The Khmer's response to these pressures is still visible in the ruins. Alterations to canals, repairs to embankments, and modifications of reservoirs suggest repeated attempts to adapt to changing conditions. But even the most determined interventions could not fully counteract the forces of nature. Angkor's triumph had always been its ability to harmonize with water. When that harmony was disrupted, the cracks began to show. As we trace the strains on Angkor's hydraulic lifeline, a deeper question emerges. Could a civilization that had conquered water itself withstand the fury and unpredictability of the elements? The answer would reveal itself in the centuries to come. By the 14th century, the forces that had long sustained Angkor began to conspire against it. The very hydraulic system that had allowed the city to flourish now showed signs of critical failure. Reservoirs lay silted and neglected, canals overflowed or dried unpredictably, and rice fields, once the empire's economic backbone, failed with increasing frequency. These disruptions struck not only at sustenance, but at the confidence and authority of the Khmer rulers. The decline of Angkor was not instantaneous. It was a gradual unraveling, a transformation punctuated by periods of stress and recovery. Historical records and archaeological evidence suggest that as environmental pressures mounted, the urban population began to dwindle. Villages and workers that had maintained the hydraulic infrastructure abandoned their posts, leaving the system increasingly vulnerable. Temples fell into disrepair, moats became stagnant, and the jungle crept closer to the heart of the city. Human factors compounded environmental challenges. Political fragmentation, the burden of maintaining monumental architecture, and the strain of governing a sprawling population all eroded the empire's resilience. Military threats from neighboring kingdoms, particularly Ayutthaya, further destabilized the region. By the late 15th century, Angkor was largely abandoned as the center of political power shifted southeast toward Phnom Penh. Yet the city did not vanish entirely. Its temples remained, partially sacred and partially reclaimed by the jungle. The water systems, though degraded, continued to leave traces across the landscape, their outlines detectable in satellite imagery and LiDAR scans. Barays became reflective pools for wildlife rather than irrigated fields. Canals became overgrown with vegetation. Angkor transformed from a vibrant hydraulic metropolis into a silent testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and fragility. The story of Angkor's collapse offers a profound lesson. Even the most sophisticated engineering, when intertwined with environmental dependence, carries inherent risk. Angkor had conquered the landscape and harnessed water to serve its people and gods, but nature, as always, asserted its power. The city's decline was a complex interplay of climatic stress, infrastructural fragility, political instability, and social change. Yet amid the ruins, there remains awe and inspiration. The remnants of Angkor's hydraulic system reveal a civilization that understood water in ways that modern engineers still study and admire. Its fall does not diminish its achievements. Instead, it underscores the delicate balance between human ingenuity and the natural world. As the jungle slowly reclaims Angkor, it stands as a silent witness to the grandeur that once was. A civilization that rose with water, thrived with it, and ultimately transformed under its inexorable rhythms. Modern technology has unlocked secrets that the jungle once concealed. For centuries, Angkor's full scale and sophistication were hidden beneath thick vegetation, and much of its hydraulic genius was lost to memory. It was only with the advent of satellite imagery, aerial photography, and LiDAR scanning that archaeologists could peer beneath the canopy and uncover the full extent of this ancient city. LiDAR revealed a vast network of canals, reservoirs, and embankments stretching far beyond the temples, illustrating a level of planning and hydraulic knowledge unmatched in its era. Excavations across Angkor have corroborated these findings. Layers of sediment in reservoirs tell a story of floods and droughts, marking periods when the system was under stress. Researchers have found evidence that some canals were deliberately widened or deepened over time, indicating adaptive responses to changing environmental conditions. Barays, once considered mere symbolic pools, have been shown to be functional reservoirs capable of storing millions of cubic meters of water, highlighting the Khmer engineers' understanding of hydraulics and fluid dynamics. Tree ring analysis and paleoclimate studies provide further insight into the environmental challenges that Angkor faced. Records from southern Vietnam indicate prolonged droughts interspersed with intense monsoons, aligning with sediment data from the region. This combination of drought and flooding would have tested even the most sophisticated hydraulic systems, explaining how food production and water management may have faltered simultaneously. The integration of archaeological fieldwork and modern scientific methods has allowed researchers to reconstruct Angkor as it once was, a living city dependent on water for agriculture, transport, urban planning, and ritual life. Studies suggest that the Khmer were not merely reactive but proactive in their engineering, creating redundancy and flexibility in their networks. Some reservoirs were linked in series, allowing water to flow from one to another, while canals were designed with graded slopes to control flow rates. Yet even the most advanced analysis cannot fully capture the lived experience of Angkor's inhabitants. The coordination required to maintain the hydraulic network was immense, involving farmers, laborers, and administrators across a sprawling city. Water was the medium of life, but also of control, symbol, and spirituality. The evidence left behind, stone embankments, water-filled barays, and ancient channels, tells the story of a civilization that mastered water, only to be humbled by it. Through archaeology and science, Angkor speaks again. Its channels whisper of ingenuity, ambition, and the fragile thread upon which civilizations hang. Though Angkor fell, its influence rippled across time and geography. The hydraulic knowledge of the Khmer Empire informed subsequent societies in Southeast Asia. Cities like Ayutthaya in Thailand and later urban centers drew upon the principles of water management perfected at Angkor, adapting them to new environments and circumstances. Modern engineers and urban planners study Angkor to glean lessons in sustainable water management. The city's combination of storage, irrigation, and flood control offers insights into creating resilient urban ecosystems in regions prone to climatic extremes. Angkor demonstrates that sophisticated hydraulic systems can support massive populations while integrating symbolic and cultural elements, a lesson that resonates even in the 21st century. Culturally, Angkor remains a symbol of human ingenuity and spiritual ambition. Its temples, moats, and reservoirs are not just monuments of stone, they are manifestations of an intimate relationship between people and nature. Through art, architecture, and engineering, the Khmer communicated their understanding of the cosmos and the vital role of water in sustaining life. Yet perhaps the most enduring legacy of Angkor lies in its story of balance and fragility. The city reminds us that civilizations, no matter how advanced, are vulnerable to environmental forces. Prosperity demands not only innovation, but continuous adaptation, vigilance, and respect for the natural world. Angkor's water systems were more than infrastructure. They were a mirror of civilization itself, magnificent, complex, and ultimately at the mercy of nature's rhythms. Angkor stands today as a testament to both human brilliance and the ephemeral nature of power. Its temples, reflecting pools, and hidden canals speak of an empire that mastered water, harnessed it to feed millions, and wove it into the very fabric of urban and spiritual life. Yet the very system that enabled such grandeur could not withstand the unpredictable forces of climate, environmental change, and human limitation. The story of Angkor is not merely one of decline. It is a story of achievement, innovation, and the extraordinary capacity of a civilization to shape its world. Its hydraulic networks remind us that technology and ingenuity are inseparable from the environment they inhabit. Angkor's waters may have receded, its canals overgrown, but the echoes of its hydraulic mastery continue to inspire awe, curiosity, and respect. As we gaze upon the ruins, the silent barays, and the jungle-engulfed temples, we are reminded that human ambition is both powerful and fragile. Angkor teaches us that civilizations rise not only through conquest and culture, but through harmony with nature, and that even the mightiest empires are ultimately part of the world they seek to command. In the shadows of its moats and the reflection of its reservoirs, Angkor whispers a timeless truth. Mastery of nature is fleeting, but the ingenuity it leaves behind endures forever.